This video is going to be about conservation, and it's a word that a lot of you probably don't know. You probably haven't heard it. The root word is conserve, or in other words, to save something, okay? So, no domestic policy sparked more controversy in Teddy Roosevelt's administration than his efforts in conservation. He was an avid hunter, okay? He liked to go hunting all the time. He respected animals, and he wanted to save them so that way we could hunt them and also enjoy their beauty, okay? So he believed that wildlife must be managed, all right? Right now, y'all, in the Northeast, there's an epidemic of deer hitting cars. Problem is, there's not a lot of hunters in the Northeast. And the deer herds in the Northeast of America are diseased in a lot of ways. When the herd gets too big, they spread disease rampantly. And you also have deer that are starving to death. So it seems to some people to be cruel to go hunting, to kill an animal, but you have to control the population, otherwise it will get out of control, okay? Now, Teddy Roosevelt, like we said before, he loved to go out and do special events with the media all there. He wanted the pictures taken so they would be in the newspaper, and more importantly, later on, be in the history books, because he wanted to be the most important man that ever lived. So he goes down to Mississippi, and whenever he's in Mississippi, he goes on a bear hunt, all right? And he got a guide to help him out to show him where the bears were. He was hunting black bear, and all the media came along with him, okay? So Teddy goes out with this guide, and the guide knows he's coming. Obviously, the president's coming to town, right? So he takes him out in the woods, and they're sneaking around, and the guide says to Mr. Teddy Roosevelt, he taps him on the shoulder and says, "Mr. President," he said, "there's a bear." And okay, so Teddy has his rifle, and he takes aim, and he looks at the guide, and he said, "Wait up, did you tie that bear to a tree?" And the guy was like, "Yeah." Okay, so Teddy Roosevelt walks over there, and he cuts the rope, and he takes his rifle and hits the bear on the butt, and it runs away. Okay? And he goes to the guide and says, "We're going to try again tomorrow to hunt, but I really want to hunt. And if you tie another bear to a tree, I'm going to find another guide." He said, "Yes, sir." So they go out to hunt the next day, and they're walking through the woods, and Teddy spots a bear. And he aims, and he takes the shot. Okay? Perfect shot, kills the bear, drops it dead instantly. Okay? Now, he walks over to retrieve his bear, and when he rolls the bear over to start the skinning process and all that stuff, he realizes that he's made a slight mistake. Whenever he shot the bear, it landed on its cub. So the bear had a little baby bear underneath it, trapped. And Teddy said to himself, "This is a golden opportunity." So Teddy Roosevelt, knowing that all of the newspaper people were in the camp waiting for them to come back from their victorious hunt, right? He picks up this baby bear, and the President of the United States walks into camp holding this little bear. And while he's holding the bear, he gives a speech to the news media and says, "This is the reason why we have to save these lands. I found this little bear out in the woods all alone. Its mother is dead." Didn't mention that he killed it, by the way. But anyway, so, but he really just played it up. You know, he played this image of the protector of wildlife and all that kind of stuff. Well, Teddy, about a couple weeks later, he gets a letter from a guy. And he said, "Look, man, I've been trying to sell these stuffed bears in my catalog for over a year, and I've got all this stock left, and they're not selling. Would you mind if I named these little stuffed bears after you?" And so Teddy wrote him back, said, "Sure, man, I don't care." So after that, little stuffed bears have been called teddy bears ever since. And that's because of Teddy Roosevelt and this story. All right. Teddy Roosevelt issued 1,006 executive orders during his presidency, which was all during peacetime. An executive order carries the same weight as law, so it's like he's making the law. But if you're familiar with the Constitution, that's not the president's job. The president's job is to carry out the laws that Congress makes. So he's overstepping his executive authority here. Now, by comparison, President Lincoln only had 3 executive orders during the entire Civil War, which was 5 years long. And that was the big horrible war that America had, where we had split in half. So Teddy really stepped on the toes of everybody in order to do the right thing. So a lot of his executive orders, dozens of them, were actually orders that took land away from the robber barons that had been holding on to it for a long time. He basically signed away executive orders to save millions of acres of land from the robber barons, so that way all Americans could enjoy it. If you go to Europe at this time, the best land, the prettiest waterfalls, the biggest mountains, all that stuff was owned by royalty and the nobles. And Teddy Roosevelt said that this land is our land and we should all be able to enjoy it. So on the test, I'm going to ask you, why did Teddy Roosevelt set aside millions of acres of land? And the reason is because he wanted you to be able to go see it, just like it is now, okay? Just like it was back then. Well, as he continued stepping on Congress's toes about the executive orders, Congress made a new law, okay? Congress limited Roosevelt's executive orders concerning national parks, but before the law went into effect, Roosevelt ordered 16 million acres as national forests. The Grand Canyon was part of this. So they make up a new law, and they say that Teddy Roosevelt can't sign any more executive orders setting aside national park land. But Teddy Roosevelt read the law, and the law did not go into effect for 10 days. And in those 10 days, he issued dozens more executive orders, saving 16 million acres of land. And it is some of the most pretty country out there in America. So this is the Grand Canyon, okay? So it stretches through several states, but the main part of it, the main chunk of it is going to be in, I think it was in southern, no, it was the Grand Canyon. Okay, it's in northern Arizona, okay? That's where most of it is. And there's a little bit of it in Nevada as well. So the little point at where Nevada comes down to a point, that's the area of the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River carved out a massive canyon, very deep, over millions of years to create this beautiful canyon. And it's not even the prettiest canyon in America, I promise you that. That's Bryce Canyon. That's coming later. Okay, big businesses. Oh, by the way, all the national parks that I'm going to show you in this video are actually places that I've been. I have not included any national parks that I have not personally been to. So, big business abused public lands. The robber barons clear-cut forests, and miners strip mined and used mercury and poisoned all the water, okay, looking for gold. So that was the way they handled it. Basically, we're going to go out and destroy this land and take the resources and cash in, and who cares if we destroy the most beautiful place on earth, you know? So, conservationist John Muir, that's this guy right here, this older gentleman, he had been traveling the country for 30 years. He hadn't owned a home in 30 years. All he did was walk around out west and camp with the Indians, and he talked to people. And he asked where the prettiest things in America were, and the Indians led him to it. So John Muir contacts Teddy Roosevelt once he sees that he's setting aside some land. This is before Congress stops him. And he says, look, I know where all the best land is in America, especially out west, and I'll take you there. So Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir go out on several camping trips. Okay, one of them was Yellowstone. Okay, this eventually is going to become Yellowstone National Park. Wait up. This is Yosemite. I'm sorry. They went to Yellowstone as well. Okay, this is Yosemite National Park. That's in California. This big waterfall you see behind you is about 2,000 feet tall. And when you're down there in the valley looking up at it, it's so big that when you're looking at the water, it looks like it's falling in slow motion. Okay, that's how tall this waterfall is. So it's pretty cool. One time I was in Yosemite, and I stopped to smoke a cigarette because I don't smoke with my kids in the car. And I get down, I'm standing on the side of the road, and there's a little plaque over there by the side of the road, and I go and read it, and it says, "This is the campsite of John Muir and Teddy Roosevelt." And I just like happened to stop there to smoke, okay? It looked like a good pull-off. There's some very beautiful things in Yosemite though, okay? So, anyway, Roosevelt believed that public land was to be protected by the government to preserve its beauty for future generations. Now, these guys are going to get into an argument soon. See, this guy wanted to preserve nature perfectly. Teddy Roosevelt, as I told you, he wanted to let all Americans see it. So if you want to let all Americans see the national parks, then you have to build roads, and you have to build bridges, and you have to build bathrooms, and all these things, and fueling stations for their cars. And that offended John Muir eventually, and they're going to have a break in their friendship after a little while. Okay? So the first national park ever is basically in the northwestern corner of Wyoming, and it's called Yellowstone National Park. And it is absolutely amazing. It sits on top of a super volcano that heats up the waters and spews minerals all over the place and makes really beautiful colors. So this right here is called Lover's Falls. It's a very pretty waterfall. It's at the bottom of a valley, and there's mountains all around. There's a nice hiking trail to get to it. You probably have seen this before. This is called Old Faithful. Okay? Old Faithful is the most famous geyser ever in history because it is predictable. Within about 15 minutes, it erupts every hour. Okay? So if you go to Old Faithful in Yellowstone National Park and you get down at the visitor center, which is massive, by the way, there's countdown clocks everywhere that counts down to the rough estimate of the time where Old Faithful was going to blow. Okay? Now, if you look right here, y'all see this track. Okay? It actually surrounds the entire geyser. And the reason for the track was because back in the 1970s, they didn't have that track, and some geniuses that were on their honeymoon decided that they wanted to go look inside of Old Faithful. So they walk up to the geyser, and they look down in the hole right as Old Faithful erupted. And it basically, the boiling water made them pass out, and they fell inside of Old Faithful. So after that, they created this track that you could walk around, and you can watch Old Faithful blow up. Now, there's a hotel that's right next to Old Faithful, and if you pay about $1,000 a night, which I did not do, you can actually face Old Faithful all night long from your balcony. Okay? So that's not really something that you buy on a teacher's salary. Okay? Anyway, moving on. This is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Okay? This is called the Grand Prismatic Spring. It is a lake inside of Yellowstone National Park. Now, the volcano is superheating the water, so this is all boiling water basically, and it's spewing these beautiful minerals out. And the water just keeps gushing up from the earth, and the minerals just keep pouring out into this. It really looks like this in real life, okay? So there is a track that goes around, okay? And the reason why is because if you would step off of this track, you would be into some boiling mud, and that really wouldn't feel good on your foot, okay? Now, if you're looking at it, the road's like over here, the track goes like this, but if you really want to see this view of it, if you don't want the reflection of the sky to mess up the colors, there's a mountain range on the north end right here with a hiking trail that's not that difficult to go to. And you can walk up there in probably a half an hour, get to the top of the mountain range, and you will see these brilliant colors. Okay, you could also take a helicopter ride for like $200, but I didn't do that again. So this is another one. This is just kind of off the road there in Yellowstone National Park. Again, these beautiful minerals spewing up from the earth right there. This is a smaller version of the Grand Prismatic Spring. You would not want to take a dip in it because it is boiling. Remember that, okay? That's where all the steam comes from. All right, one of my favorite places on earth. This is Bryce Canyon, okay? Bryce Canyon's in southern Utah, and I think the prettiest place for me is the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. Second place I would pick would be southern Utah. Southern Utah has about 7 or 8 national parks all in one clump, and you could spend 2 weeks there just driving around in circles seeing it all. So this is Bryce Canyon, absolutely beautiful. I think it's more beautiful than the Grand Canyon, and this is just one view of it. I mean, there's tons. And it's all road accessible because of Teddy Roosevelt, so, and his conservation efforts. Okay, we have Arches National Park. Okay, you might have seen this before, and this entire park is full of arches like this. Okay, you could actually hike right up to this. You could sit right here if you wanted, but the whole park is pretty like that. I like Bryce Canyon better. This is the Wave. Okay, the Wave is a very unique area. This is all petrified sandstone. Okay, you actually have to get a permit to hike out here. It's in the Grand Staircase National Escarpment, is what they call it, and that is a really cool place because nobody goes here. When we went, I think we might have seen, and it took us about 3 hours to go through the park, and I might have seen 6 other cars, because it's not a national park per se, it's a national monument, which is not, but anyway, they only allow a certain amount of people to go here because they don't want to mess up the weight, okay, they don't want to mess up the thing here. But if you go to Grand Staircase, it takes about 2 hours to hike out here, and you have to have a permit. Now this you've probably seen before, if you've ever seen a Western movie. Okay, this is in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Westerns, and it's basically Monument National Valley. Okay, and it is right between, it's right around the Four Corners region. So it's like in the area, I think it's in northern New Mexico if I'm not mistaken, but it's also like right next to Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. So it's in that Four Corners area, but it's a very beautiful place too. One of these big monuments right here, you know, that's what they call them. Metallica actually filmed a video on top of it called I Disappear. So that was a pretty cool video if you want to check that out. All right, cool. This is the Great Sand Dune National Park. All right, so right next to the Rocky Mountains, we have the Great Plains, and we have desert. So the sand had been blown right up next to the Rocky Mountains, and it created these 1,000-foot tall sand dunes, which are really fun to climb. Me and my kids got all the way to the top of the sand dunes. Now, if you look right here, there's a river. This is glacial meltwater running around it. So imagine you got beautiful snowy mountains in the back, you're on a sand dune, and you got a bright blue river circling the sand dune. It's pretty cool to go there. Check that out. And you could start to see, y'all, this is why Teddy Roosevelt saved this stuff. I mean, if you were a robber baron, wouldn't you love to, like, you know, go out with your morning coffee and go on the front porch and just, you're the only one that gets to see this stuff? Or if your front porch has the grand prismatic spring right in front of it, you know? All right, this is cool. Craters of the Moon National Monument, okay? This is in Idaho, if I'm not mistaken. It's either in Idaho or Montana, but I'm pretty sure it's Idaho. But this is an old volcano. This is an active volcano area, and you can climb the volcanoes. We actually did that. So we climbed the one that was about 600 feet tall. But these are not active anymore, okay? These are long dormant, so pretty cool stuff. By the way, while you're in national parks, do not pick up any rocks or any things. You're not supposed to take anything out of the national parks. Oh, the Badlands. Okay, so in South Dakota, okay, we have the Badlands National Park. Basically, you're driving there, and it's nice green rolling hills, and then all of a sudden it drops off of a cliff, and it's like the Great Plains rotted away. This is all very loose soil. It is not hard rock. And you can climb all over you want, but it's going to be crumbly and stuff like that. Now, this is land that we gave the Indians. If you remember the first chapter, we talked about how we gave the Indians the bad lands, right? This is literally one of their reservations. There's no drinkable water, which means there's no wildlife and no chance of actually making any food here. So we made them live there. And it's no wonder that they went out raiding and killing white people and stealing their stuff, okay? So, very beautiful spot right there. We have the Devil's Tower, okay? This is also in South Dakota. Devil's Tower is about 1,000 feet tall. It looks like a gigantic tree stump. And it's in the Black Hills of South Dakota. That's where the Battle of Little Bighorn took place. This is where Deadwood is, if you remember the stories about that Wild West town that we talked about in the first chapter. There are about 10 of these on Earth. Now, some people have theorized that these were basically a species of giant tree that got cut down and petrified over time. So I don't know enough about that. I don't believe that's true, but the estimates were something like these trees would have to be something like 10,000 feet tall or something like that, if this is true. Okay. We have Grand Tetons National Park. Okay. If you know French, that's going to be funny to you. But anyway, so a Frenchman was going through here, and he saw two big mountains right next to each other, and he called them the Grand Tetons. There's a big, beautiful lake right in front of it. There's more than two mountains, way more. And this is right next to Yellowstone National Park. So that's going to be in, that's mostly in Idaho right here. And then you cross the border and you get into Wyoming and Yellowstone. All right, Yosemite National Park. Okay, so Yosemite National Park is really cool. We have El Capitan right here is the name of this one. It's a sheer cliff, basically. A lot of rock climbers like to go there, and they like to climb that. This one back here is a very unique mountain. It's just as big as this one, but you can't tell that from the picture. This is called Half Dome. Literally half the mountain fell off, and that's what's left. So this is where Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir went camping together, was in Yosemite National Park. Okay, Death Valley, the lowest spot in America. Okay, when you get down to the bottom of Death Valley, because it's just so low in altitude, it is hot. The day that we went there, it was about 127 degrees down in what I think they called it Hell's Furnace or Hell's Kitchen is the name of the area. This right here is the Vasquez Rock Formation, also known as Star Trek Mountain. Okay, is also featured in the Bill and Ted movies, if you ever watched that. So it's been used in a lot of different movies, and you could actually climb it. It's not that steep. It's about a 45-degree angle. Me and my kids actually got all the way to the top right here. So I didn't bring my smallest one though. But anyway, so moving on, my favorite place, the Great Smoky Mountains. Okay, if you want to see it looking like this, where it looks like the mountains are on fire because of the leaves and everything, go around Thanksgiving time. Okay. So a lot of beautiful streams, low mountains. I think the highest one's 6,600 feet. Okay. We have Sequoia National Park. Okay. These big giant trees, they are a lot bigger than you think. These are not the biggest ones there. But a lot of these trees have been hollowed out so you can actually go and stand inside of them. It's like a little teepee being inside of there. And I remember the first one I went in, probably shouldn't tell this story on video, but the first one I went in, I saw some nasty stuff laying on the ground. And I figured, okay, well, maybe a bear's been in here. You know, he left a little surprise for everyone. And then I saw the toilet paper right next to it. And I was like, golly, man, the porta potty's like 300 feet that way. You're just being, you know. This right here is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Okay, if you go to Chattanooga, Tennessee, this is not a national park, but it is a pretty cool place. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, there's a mountain called Lookout Mountain. And if you go deep inside of Lookout Mountain, you get to a cave, and inside of there is Ruby Falls. So it's a waterfall inside of a cave, and they light it up beautifully, and they change the lighting colors and all that stuff. It's really something to see, and it's not far off the road. This is a really cool place. I was just driving through on my way to probably Vegas or something like that at the time, and I saw this, and I had to take a picture. I mean, that is an absolutely beautiful thing. This is Spotted Wolf Canyon in Utah, okay? One of the most unique views that I've ever seen. And, you know, we're up on a hill here, and you're looking down into the valley. So I think it's pretty with the road like that. Okay, getting back to Tennessee, okay? Well, in Tennessee, in Sweetwater, Tennessee, particularly, there is a cave that you could go to, and it's called the Lost Sea Adventure. And you hike down about 45 minutes, and at the bottom of the cave, there's a lake. And this lake, they put a lot of rainbow trout in it, which have gone blind over the years because of the lack of light. Okay, and then they have these boats that you can take a boat ride in the lake that's all lit up, and the boat is actually clear. It's made of a clear acrylic plastic, so you can see the fish literally coming up from under your feet. It's definitely worth going if you're going to the Smoky Mountains anyway. All right, enough vacation pictures. Back to this, okay? So, public lands could be leased to business to be developed, but government must regulate everything that was done. Okay, we had to develop the lands. We had to get the hotels there. We had to get the gas stations there so Americans could see it. But Teddy wants to actually regulate what the businesses are doing. They don't want people going in and just clear-cutting forests and stuff and setting up huge cities inside of a national park. Teddy Roosevelt's nomination of Gifford Pinchot as head of the U.S. Forestry Service angered John Muir, who wanted public lands to be conserved in their natural state. Gifford Pinchot felt like Teddy Roosevelt. He wanted to use the land. He wanted the land to be part of, you know, something we can enjoy. But, you know, if you don't actually put roads through the thing, then there's no way that somebody like my 6-year-old little girl would get to see it, because she's not going to hike 200 miles to go see a waterfall or something. So, moving on from that, this is when Teddy Roosevelt and John Muir split up. They basically were no longer friends. John Muir said he regretted ever showing Teddy all those lands because of what Teddy turned them into. So, the New Land Reclamation Act is next, y'all. Remember, we're trying to get people out west. The West, even today, is still largely unpopulated, and it is full of government land that's just out there. Some of it's still available from the Homestead Act if you want to take a chance, okay? But there's a reason why it's not really taken up, because it's a harsh place to live. Well, Teddy says, let's take this land that's all desert out west in the Southwest, and let's turn it into a nice, lush farming area. So what he did is he took government land and he sold it cheap to farmers, really cheap. We're talking in some cases like $1 an acre, you know. And he took all that money and he put it into these huge waterworks projects where we're going to drill deep wells into the land and pump water to the surface, turning the desert into great fertile farmland. And it was very successful, and a lot of people moved out west because of the New Land Reclamation Act, which is another thing. You see, Teddy did not want to conserve it in its natural state. He wanted to improve the land and make it better.